guys, it's Sam, and this is my December wrap-up. I know that it feels like everyone has already talked about their 2017 reads and stuff, and I'm going to as well, but I have to wrap up December 1st. So all of my 2017 videos, so like favorite and least favorite couples, my favorite books of the year, all of that stuff, goals, that'll be coming up in the next like couple of weeks, week and a half or so. So first off, in December, I read An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. As of right now, this is a standalone YA fantasy story. I've already done a full review on my channel, so I will link that on the screen for you to check out for more of my thoughts. This has been a very polarizing read for a lot of people. People seem to love it or hate it. I went into this with zero expectations. I know a lot of people were hyped about this for months and months, but I really only started hearing about it when other people received it for review, so I didn't really know much about it, and I think that helped me going into it. As I said in my review, I end up really enjoying this. It's very atmospheric and very fast-paced, and it reminds me at times of things like Uprooted. It has that kind of atmosphere to it with the Fae, and the Fae being a little bit wrong, a little bit off. I don't think it was as strong as it could have been. There were parts of the plot that just didn't really get wrapped up as well, and it is a fairly short story, so it just kind of rushed through a lot of things, and I didn't find the romance to be quite what I wanted. I was looking for more of this like angsty thing going on, as I done do. And this just wasn't quite that. It was bordering on insta-love, but not quite, but close enough to kind of make me a little eh. But overall, I ended up really enjoying this, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's just one of those books that it has a lot of faults, yeah, but I just really liked it, and it was a fun time, and I like having fun. The next book I actually listened to on audiobook, and that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Now this book has been widely popular and everyone's talking about it. It's a YA contemporary that follows the main character of Star, and her very good friend, childhood friend, ends up getting killed by the police, and so it kind of revolves around the Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that. All the praise that this book has gotten has been incredibly well deserved. I ended up just getting this on audio from my library, and I really recommend doing that. The narrator for this is excellent. She is also the narrator for The Sun Is Also a Star and a couple other YA contemporaries that I ended up reading before knowing that she was the narrator, otherwise I would have listened to them on audiobook, but she's excellent. She does the voices so well, and she just really has a sense of just bringing the emotions out in the characters, and it's just wonderful. She's one of the best narrators I've ever listened to. So this was an excellent audiobook. I was just enamored with it. I would sit in my car after my commutes, because I listen to the audiobooks in the car on the way to and from work, and I would actually sit there for minutes after just wanting to like finish up the chapters and hear what's going on. I even listened to the last part of this in the gym, which is, it's not a gym book, it's not light. I had to have multiple times where I was like holding back tears. It was very stupid, but I had to keep listening to it. So I highly recommend this. I think the characters are great, I think the themes are great, I think the plot is great, everything's great, and I definitely recommend listening to it on audio because it's a wonderful experience. So I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I then end up also listening to The Host by Stephanie Meyer on audiobook. I do have a physical copy that I got years ago, but everyone recommended the audiobook to me. I don't love this audiobook narrator as much as some people do, mostly because she is also the audiobook narrator for the Darker Shade of Magic series, at least the girl versions, and that's Lila, and I sort of associate her with that now, and so I hate her a little bit. But this did a lot to redeem that for me because I ended up overall enjoying this audiobook. I've done a full review on this book, which I will link on the screen for you to check out if you're interested in my in-depth thoughts. As I said in my review, this feels like a Stephanie Meyer book, but it's definitely better in my opinion than Twilight. She definitely improves a lot of things that she has trouble with, but Stephanie Meyer is very character focused in her writing. Even though she does write these kind of paranormal-y type stories, they are mostly about the characters. So if you don't like the characters, you're not going to like this, but for the most part, I enjoyed the characters. It's still struggles with some pacing issues. Like the first 20% of the book, I felt like we're just waiting to get to what actually ends up happening, and then you get to the character stuff and like learning about all the characters and everything like that, and this kind of found family element, which I ended up really liking, and then the last 10% is when all the big plot elements start happening and there's a rush and there's all this stuff that feels very reminiscent of just Stephanie Meyer's writing. It's what she does. But I did end up liking this a lot. There are still some elements of some toxic masculinity in ways and some like borderline, not quite abusive, but like really questionable things going on with some of the relationships as far as the age differences between the male and female characters that are in relationships, and also the level of borderline violence that happens, which doesn't happen as often as, again, like Twilight or something, but is still definitely there in a way that made me uncomfortable because I ended up really liking these characters, especially these main characters or these romances, and those elements kind of pulled me out of the story and made me not like them as much, which was sad. So there are some different things that are still problematic, but overall I ended up liking a lot of this story, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I then picked up The Three Body Problem by Sixin Liu. This is the first book in an adult sci-fi trilogy that has actually been translated from Chinese. I have done a full review on this book as well, which I will leave on the screen for you to check out. But this book is definitely a hard sci-fi. This has a very in-depth synopsis that I cover more in my review, so I'm not going to go into it because it's kind of hard to explain. But there's a lot of things going on with very hard science, mostly physics, nanotechnology, and like radio technology kind of. And there's this video game that you can go into that has all these problems of physics going on because the video game world, which is like a VR virtual reality type video game world, it doesn't abide by the laws of physics at all, and it's a very weird book, and it's very, very science heavy. So like I said in my review, I really enjoyed what it was trying to do. I grasped that part, but there's so much science in here, and it's so heavy and often reads like a textbook that it just didn't end up being the kind of story that I was interested in. It wasn't for me. I prefer my sci-fi to be more character focused, or even more like plot driven action-y. Like those are my different types of things that I really enjoyed. This was just so science heavy that I had a hard time following a lot of times, so I would kind of glaze over when characters were kind of teaching each other these sciencey type things, because the characters will talk to one another and like teach. That's why it feels so textbook-like, and I didn't have any connection to the characters because I felt just at a distance from them, and it was just a very distant reading experience. So overall, I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars because I appreciate what it was trying to do, and then it just wasn't the type of story for me, but hard sci-fi is just not my thing. I then picked up something that was much more my thing, and that was The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is the first book in what I believe is going to be an adult fantasy trilogy. The second book is already out, just came out in December. But this is a fantasy that incorporates elements of Russian folklore and mythology, so it takes place deep in the Russian forest, and it incorporates a lot of different Russian folklore and tales that you're familiar with if you read a lot of these kinds of stories, so I end up really enjoying this. This is a bit of a slower read. People do say that it's good for fans of Uprooted by Naomi Novik or Deathless by Catherine Valente, which I definitely agree with. It fits in that kind of realm very well, but it's not quite as action-y as like Uprooted, but it's also not quite as confusing as Deathless. So there were times where the pacing felt a little bit slow, but that was definitely on purpose, and overall I ended up really enjoying this. The atmosphere in this is just wonderful. If you like the atmosphere of like Deathless or Uprooted, you're going to love this. This definitely has that same atmosphere, and this character that I just adore, that I know is not going to be everyone's cup of tea necessarily, but she's just wonderful. She's kind of one of those people that has herself half in and half out of like the real and the unreal, you know, like she is closer to all this mythology than everyone else is, and it makes her kind of eccentric, but it also makes her just really great, and I ended up really enjoying this. But part of the action though is right at the very end, so I do feel like there's like this whole kind of pacing thing, but I end up really enjoying it. I'm going to continue with the series, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I am going to be doing a full review for this on my channel very soon, so pay attention for that if you want more of my thoughts. And the last book that I read in 2017 was Winter Spell by Claire Legrand. This is a book I've had for quite some time. It's come out a couple of years ago, and it's actually pretty controversial, I feel like. This was supposed to be, I think, the first book in a series, but I haven't heard anything else about the rest of the series, so right now it's kind of a standalone. But this is a YA fantasy, supposedly kind of loosely a retelling of the Nutcracker story, but I would say, based on the reviews that I've seen and how polarizing it is, to not go into it thinking that it's a Nutcracker retelling, because apparently it's not really. But this ends up being its own kind of twisted, dark fairy tale, so it follows the main character who lives in our world but gets pulled into the magical world of Cain, and it's sort of like a fairy tale world, and similar to the Nutcracker, but not quite, and that world is being corrupted by the evil queen, and she has to kind of figure out her place in it and why she was called into it and all of this stuff. And I end up enjoying it overall. There were some problems. There is this element of insta-love kind of between her and like the prince character, and there is this really unsettling focus on sexuality in an almost problematic way. It has the character being like overly sexual and also very leery of sexuality and like nudity and all this stuff, and it's just very like, it's viewed in a shameful way, and it is the character overall, her opinion on it, but it is odd. So that's a thing that I ended up not really liking. But the world itself is really interesting and really weird and very dark, and there is a very enigmatic villain who's a female villain who is very dark and twisted in a lot of ways, but her and the main character end up also having this kind of bond, because I don't want anyone to get their hopes up like I did. There is there's this tension, you know, and give me a little bit of that dark tension between ladies and I'm like really here for it. And that ended up kind of elevating the book in my opinion, but I ended up really liking that villain. I ended up really liking the world, and there's a lot of things that were kind of thrown together in ways. It's not perfect, but almost like an Enchantment of Ravens, I ended up forgiving it for a lot of those things. So it has some problems. I'm going to talk about this more in a full review later on in the month, but I ended up giving this 3.75 out of 5 stars. So that is it for all the books I ended up reading in December. Comment down below, let me know how your December reading month went and the last couple of books that you ended up reading in 2017. Was it good? Was it bad? Comment down below and let me know. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!